Hi, I'm Kathy with the Delafield Quilt Company, and today I want to show you one of my latest little camper projects, and that is this flying geese pillow. I hope that you enjoyed the tutorial. The fabric that you need for the pillow top are 18 4 1/4 inch squares in white. In navy fabric, you're going to need 72 2 3/8 inch squares, two 18.5 inch by 2 inch strips, two 21 inch by 2 inch strips. And for the backing fabric of the pillow top, you're going to need one 22 inch square. This can be pretty much whatever you have that's in cotton because you're not going to see it. And one 22 inch square of batting. For the pillow case, so this will be the back shell of the case, you're going to need two 21 inches by 14 inch rectangles and 56 inches of 2 inch wide strips for the binding. We also need an 18 inch to 20 inch square pillow insert. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to use the no waste flying geese method. That's going to allow us to make 4 flying geese blocks at once. This method is pretty fast and pretty accurate as long as you are solid on your 1/4 inch seams and your lines are drawn straight and accurate. The first thing we're going to do to make 4 flying geese at once, so we're going to take the small squares, there are two 3/8 inch squares, and we're going to draw a diagonal line right down the diagonal center of each of those squares. Okay, once you have that done, we're going to take 2 of those squares. We're going to start at the top here, top corner of our 4 1/4 inch square of white. We're going to put one of those squares down, and then we're going to line the other one up at the bottom. We want to make sure that line that we drew goes all the way from the top corner of the white to the bottom corner of the white square. And then I'm just going to put a pin in place. And now we want to sew a 1/4 inch from both sides of this line. Okay, now I've got the 1/4 inch sewn on each side of the line, and I'm just going to go ahead, grab my rotary cutter and a straight edge ruler, and I'm going to split that right on the diagonal, right between the 2 sewing lines. And then you're going to end up with this. And now we need to press these open, and I'm just going to press the triangle away so the seam actually will be towards the triangle. I'm going to do the same with the other side. Okay, and then our next step is going to be taking another square, lining up on the part that we haven't sewn anything to. We're going to make sure the diagonal is to that point of the white below, and then goes between these 2 ones that we sewn on before. And then I'm just going to put a pin in it to secure. Then I'm going to repeat that with the other one. Okay, now I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch on both sides of this line for both of these pieces here. Okay, so I've got these now sewn, and now like I did before, I'm going to cut right on that line that I drew before. And then we need to press these open again. The last thing we need to do before these flying geese are ready is to trim off the little dog ears. So I'm just going to take my ruler, get those little dog ears off. And just like that, we have 4 flying geese blocks. And before I go on making more of these, I'm just going to double check the size. They should be 2 inches by 3.5 inches. Mine is slightly off. This could be because maybe my 1/4 inch wasn't on, or maybe my lines were a little off. If you're finding that your blocks are a little bit off, just check your seam allowances and make sure that your lines are drawing straight on the diagonal. And now that you've got the first 4 done, you're going to repeat that process 17 more times. Once you have all of your flying geese done, we're going to sew them in columns of 6. And you're going to sew them together using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. When you're pressing your seams, you're going to want to make one of your 6 flying geese block go one direction for the seam allowance, and then press the one that's going to be sewn next to it going the opposite direction. This will help with nesting the seams. And then when you sew the units of 6 together, just make sure you're lining up all of your seams on your blocks. And use a lot of pins so it doesn't lose position. Okay, once you have it pinned, go ahead and sew it using a 1/4 inch seam. Once you've got your 2 essential bigger panels sewn, the top and the bottom of the pillow, you can decide if you want to have the blue diamonds be featured, or if you turn it around, these middle ones could be white diamonds. I'm going to actually go with the blue diamonds. And then when I'm doing this, I just need to make sure not only am I lining up the seams of the columns, but I'm also lining up the points of the flying geese. Because if those are off, this whole thing is going to look a little wonky. So use lots of pins and make sure you're lining those items up. Once you've got it all pinned, go ahead and sew it with a quarter inch seam. Okay, once you have your two pieces sewn together, the next step is to add your border pieces. So first we're going to start with the shorter one, so the 18 inches, or the 18.5 inches. We're going to sew those to these sides. And then we're going to do the longer ones, the 21 inches. And once the 18s are sewn on, we're going to sew those to the top and the bottom. Okay, once you have your border sewn on and the seams pressed to one side, we're going to make a quilt sandwich so that we can quilt this top piece. So to do that, you just need your backing fabric, which is a 21-inch square or 22-inch square. Then lay down your batting and center your pillow top on top of this. And then you can quilt this in whatever way you'd like. I've already quilted one, and I chose just to stitch in the ditch on this one. So once you have it all quilted, then we're going to just go ahead and cut off that extra bindings and square up the edges. So I'm going to use my ruler to do that. And then we can set the top aside for now. So now we need to make the rest of the pillowcase, and this is going to be the backing. It's essentially going to be like an envelope that your pillow is going to come into. So we're going to need our two 21 inches by 14 inch pieces, and then we're going to draw an inch from the top on one of the long sides of these pieces. You do want to use a fabric friendly marker. And you're going to repeat that on the other piece as well. So then we are going to fold this down to the line, so we essentially have a 1/2 inch seam here, and we're going to press that down. Okay, and once you have that pressed down, go ahead and fold it over again so we don't have any raw edges exposed. And then press that with your iron as well. And repeat that on the other piece as well. And then go ahead and top sew right along the edge here. Okay, so I have my top edges of this backing already sewn. And now I need to create what's going to be the back of the pillowcase. And I'm going to do that by overlapping these pieces about 4 inches. And then we'll adjust that to fit our quilt top or a pillow top. You want to make sure that it's the wrong side up. And then take your quilt top, your pillow top, line it to the top. Looks like it's a little bit bigger on the edges, so I'm just going to scooch that in a little bit by overlapping it just a little bit more. And then just make sure all your edges are lined up. And then I'm going to just clip this in place. Especially want to make sure that overlap doesn't get caught when I go to sew it. And then I'm going to do a basting stitch, a 1/4 inch all the way around. And I'm going to make sure that I have all the layers sewn into that basting stitch. Okay, once you have this stitched all the way around, I'm going to go ahead and just trim a little bit of that excess away from the edges, because when I go back with the binding, I want to make sure we don't see this basting stitch that I just put in. So I'm probably going to trim it down to a generous 1/8 inch. Okay, to finish this, we just need to bind it. And I'm going to bind it just like I would a quilt. I'm going to take the 2-inch strips of binding, make sure they're sewn together, and then I just folded them in half and press them. I won't show you how to bind this. We do have a tutorial if you're interested in how to do a machine sewn binding. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that machine binding on this. Okay, once you have your binding sewn on, then you can just slip in your pillow form. And there you go, you have a finished flying geese pillow. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to our channel and visit us at delafieldquiltco.com. Have a great day.